Welcome back to English 4.0, the radio show. Let's go! Intermediate. All right, welcome back. Yeah, and welcome to Intermediate Class 54. 54. We're getting up there, aren't we? We're moving along. And as always, we're going to start with a review of what we saw in Class 53. We were looking at the verb to fly at the first of the class, the first point there in Class 53, and you can take a look at that in your student guide. And we see the verb to fly. Every day I fly. Yesterday I flew. Flew. It's the same word as la gripe. The flu. I have the flu. The flu. Yeah. So we say to fly. Yesterday I flew. F-L-E-W. Now, did you fly to the UK last year? No, I didn't fly to the UK last year. Did you fly to Barcelona? Pues sí. Yes, I flew. I flew to Barcelona. Last year, I flew to Canada. I also flew to Mexico City. That's true. I took a vacation. I went down to Mexico, and I flew to New York. And from New York, I flew to Mexico City. And it was a very interesting trip, I must say. It was very nice. I flew. A few years ago, I flew to Asia. My brother lives in Malaysia, and I flew there to visit him. It was a long flight, vuelo. It was a long flight. It took me, more or less, I think it took about 12 hours. I flew to the Middle East. I flew to Dubai. And I stopped in Dubai. No, it must have been more than 12 hours because I flew to Dubai, which I think was 7.5 hours, and then another 7 or 8 hours, so 14 to 15 hours of total flying. But the airlines going to Asia are very nice. I really enjoyed flying with those airlines. Emirates was the airline that I flew with to Asia, going through Dubai. Very nice. So today I fly. Every day I fly. Yesterday I flew. Now, did the Beatles fly a lot when they were together? Yes, they flew a lot. They flew to a lot of cities. They flew to a lot of different countries. Okay? So every day I fly. Yesterday I flew. Now, we also have mosca, which is a fly. A fly like a mosquito. A little fly or a house fly. So flies fly. There you go. To fly. Also related to flying, and I mentioned a few days ago in class the invention of the first flying machine. About 1,000 years before the Wright brothers, a man designed a machine of silk, feathers, and wood, and he climbed up a tower near Cordoba here in Spain and jumped into the air, and he managed to stay aloft, meaning in the air. He managed to stay up in the air for about 10 minutes, and then he crashed down and broke the machine. But he was, he was flying. Well, if you want to call it that, flying about 1,000 years before the Wright brothers invented the what we consider the first airplane. So there you go. All right. So the verb to fly. Every day I fly. Yesterday I flew. Now let's move on and take a look at our translation list. Translation. Yes, it's time now for the translation. Our translation list number 5, sentence number 1, no lo hice. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Number 2, ¿quién lo hizo? ¿Quién? Who? Right. Who did it? Who did it? I don't know. Who did it? Number 3, ¿lo hicieron ellos? Did they do it? Did they do it? Very good. Number 4, ¿te importaría usar el otro coche? ¿Te importaría? Would you mind? Would you mind? Would you mind using the other car? Usar el otro coche, the other car? Not another car, but el otro, the other car. Would you mind using the other car? I want this car. Would you mind using the other car? Would you mind, gerund? Would you mind going there? Would you mind helping me? Would you mind fixing it? Would you mind using the other car? Number 5. Había mucha gente aquí cuando llegué. There were a lot of people here when I arrived. Yes, there were a lot of people here when I arrived. Oh, excuse me, allí. There were a lot of people there when I arrived. Yes, excuse me. There were a lot of people there when I arrived. Absolutely. Number 6, siempre hay mucha gente allí. There are always a lot of people there. There are always a lot of people there. Number 7, mi gente no hace cosas así. My people don't do things like that. Mi gente no hace cosas así. My people don't. People. People are, right? Plural. My people don't do things like that. Number 8, vas a lamentarlo. You're going to regret it. You're going to regret it. To regret, lamentar, to regret. You're going to regret it. Number 9, pensé que estarías de acuerdo. I thought you would agree. I thought you would agree. To agree, not to be agree, but to agree. I thought you would agree. Number 10, ten paciencia. Be patient. So we don't have patience in English. We are patient. Be patient. Be patient. Take your time. Be patient. Number 11, recuerda lo que te voy a decir. Remember what I'm going to tell you. Remember what I'm going to tell you. Very good. Number 12, va a ser una experiencia interesante. It's going to be an interesting experience. It's going to be an interesting. 3 syllables, interesting. We don't normally say, we don't say interesting. Interesting. It's going to be an interesting experience. Yes, it's going to be an interesting experience. All right, very good. Word of the day. All right, it's time for our word of the day. The word of the day today is, ¿cómo se dice sudor? Sweat. Sweat. Yes, when you study a lot of English, you might sweat. I want to see you sweat. I want you to work hard. You have to study so much that you sweat, right? S-W-E-A-T, sweat. So a noun, the noun sweat. There was sweat on his brow. There was sweat running down his face because he was sweating. The verb to sweat. He was sweating. Every day I sweat. Yesterday I sweated. So, to sweat. Sweat. It's pronounced like wet, mojado, with an S. But we have an A, S-W-E-A-T. It's written like S-W, eat, E-A-T. But it's pronounced like S-wet. Sweat. 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 Yes. If you work hard, if you run really hard, you may start to sweat. Okay? Now, not a sweat. There's no E in front of the S, okay? Make sure you're pronouncing that properly. All right, now we're going to look at a structure here that we say, when I was at school. When I was at school. when I was at university. Okay, because so many of my students say, when I was in the university. No. No. When I was at school, when I was at university. Now, you can say when I was in university. That's fine, but not the. Do not put the article in there, okay? When I was in university, I met a lot of interesting people. When I was at university, I can say, when I was at university, I had to study a lot. I studied so much, I sweated from studying so hard, right? Okay, so when I was in university, and we can practice with the verbs to come. When I was in university, I came to Europe in the summer. When I was in university, I came to Europe. And then with the verb to bring. When I was in university, I brought my books to class every day. I did. I brought my books and my folders to class every day. When I was in university, I flew a few times in a few different planes. I flew to a few different locations. When I was in university, I built a house. That's not true, but just a grammatical example. When I was in university, I built a house. So we have the verbs to come, venir, to bring, traer, to build, construir, and to fly, volar. When I was in school, I brought my books to class every day. When I was in school, I flew to Toronto. Yeah, I flew to Toronto to visit some friends. When I was in school, I flew to Vancouver. When I was in school, I flew to Florida. But I didn't fly to Europe when I was in school. When I was in university, or when I was at university, I flew to Europe. Yes. When I was in school, I built models. Yeah, I built models. I built things in. We had woodworking classes. We had a class where we used to make things out of wood, and we also had a metalworking class. And we had a class where we did various projects. Some semesters we would do art. Other semesters we would do cooking. We would do woodworking, metalworking. Different subjects like that. And I always enjoyed the classes where I could make things or build things. So I built a table. When I was in school, I built a table. When I was in school or when I was at school, I will say it the way your student manual says, when I was at school, I built some things out of metal. I built a small box out of metal for holding coins and keys. Yes. So, and with the verb to fly, when I was at school, yes, I flew to Vancouver. When I was at school, I flew to Toronto. But when I was at school, I didn't fly to Europe. When I was at university, I flew to Europe. Yes. Vocabulary of the day. All right, it's time now for our vocabulary of the day. The first word today of vocabulary, barrer. The verb to sweep. To sweep. Yes, and with this verb, with this action, we need a broom. The tool that we use is a broom. Estrategia. Strategy. Strategy. That's right, strategy. Now be careful, not a strategy. No, strategy. Beginning with the lips, the S in my lips, not in my vocal cords, okay? Strategy. Guía telefónica. Phone book. Phone book, that's right, phone book or telephone book. And what you do is you look things up in the phone book, in the telephone book, yes. To look up numbers, to look up information in the phone book, in the telephone book. Volver a telefonear. To call back. To call back. He called me once, and then he called me back. You can call someone back if you don't get through, if you don't make contact, if you don't get through to them by phone, you can call them back. Volver a telefonear. Enriquecerse. Enriquecerse, to get rich. To get rich. That's right, to get rich. All right, it's time now to practice with superlatives. So the simple superlative structure, we add est. Strong, strongest. Okay, strongest. So remember, the comparative is with the er. I am strong, but he is stronger. But Fitz is the strongest. He is the strongest. Okay, he is the strongest, the most strong. But we don't say the most strong. With words that are short, less than 2 syllables, we will say, well, 1 syllable, and some 2-syllable words as well. It's a question of case, really. We say strongest. Okay, with longer words, we would say the most interesting, for example. We wouldn't say the interestingest, okay, but the most interesting. Okay, so my car is fast. David's car is faster, but Richard's car is even faster than David's. So Richard's car is the fastest. His is the fastest. Okay, make sure that you do not confuse the superlative and the comparative. Okay, the superlative, the fastest. Richard's is the fastest. Okay? My house is fairly big, and Layla's house is bigger than mine. But David's house is even bigger than Layla's. So David has the biggest house. Of the 3, David's house is the biggest. It's the biggest, yes. And let's say Fitz's house is small. Yes, Fitz's house is small. But Carly's house is even smaller. In fact, Carly's is the smallest. The smallest. Now, when we practice with these superlatives, you have good examples, great examples given in the classes on television, great examples given in your student guide. And remember some of the irregular examples. For example, good, and then he's a little bit better, mejor, but the best. The superlative of good is best. Best. And the opposite is worst. Yes. We had a bad day. The next day was worse. No T. The next day was worse. But the day after that was the worst. The superlative of bad, the worst. Now, we're all out of time, so I must finish there. But thank you so much for joining me. We'll be back in a few minutes with the advanced class, and I'll be back with more explanation tomorrow, same time, same place. See you then. Bye-bye.